Look, I saw what was going on with Michael Brown and some of the early viral videos of police violence. I wanted to do something, but protesting is just not my jam. I'm not saying that people shouldn't protest, go for it, but it seemed hot outside, I just didn't want to do it. And so I thought, I want to do something. And the only thing I know how to do is I'm one of the world's biggest data nerds. So I said, this is going to be the easiest paper I ever write. I'm going to go get some data. I'm going to go show that the police are biased. Finally, people are going to like me. And my grandmother's going to go, you showed that the police don't like black people. Really? What are you doing up there? Right? Like this was, I had it all laid out. So I set up ride-alongs in Camden, Philadelphia, Houston, some places in Massachusetts to ride along with the police. Now, back to 1991. I don't like the police very much. I don't.
What had been your experience with the police?
I had been roughed up by the police. I've had guns pulled on me. Mind you, they pulled me over and I decided it would be a good idea to get out of the car and walk away. The details are important, probably. But in any event, I didn't like their customer service. And so I just didn't like police. They came, they took half my family away. Granted, they were selling a lot of drugs, but again, not the greatest customer service. So I was biased against the police. I'm not, that's obvious. I went and I don't think I've received a better education since my grandmother taught me to read. It's a hard job.
All right, guys, so I hope we've all learned over the last few days just how much the left cannot tolerate political opinions that they disagree with, because their authoritarian nature dictates that free speech is antithetical to their communist agenda. And one of the tools that they use to push their communist agenda is the race hustle, right? That's why race issues are so prevalent in society. This is why the left is so hell-bent on playing up this idea that there is systemic racism that is holding black people down. And if you're white and you don't agree with it, then you're racist. And if you're black and you don't agree with it, then you are a sellout and a whole bunch of other racial slurs and names that they like to call you when they really don't have any real arguments, right? When they don't have any real substance, when they cannot actually dispute your arguments or points. This is what they do, right? I mean, it happens every single time. I mean, whether you're looking at Fannie Willis, okay, who is boohoo, whining and crying racism because she got caught letting Nathan Wade, the special prosecutor that she hired to go after her political opponent, throw his hot dog down her hallway while she was taking taxpayer-funded trips with him across the globe, okay? She boohoo, whined and cried and said, oh, you're just trying to go after a black woman. You're just trying to bring down a black woman, right? This is what they say. You look at Marilyn Mosby, the state attorney in Baltimore that just got found guilty of mortgage fraud and lying about taking a hardship withdrawal from her retirement accounts in order to go buy real estate in Florida. She boohooed and whined and cried racism, right? The Biden DOJ is racist for going after her and targeting her, even though she's clearly in the wrong. Again, this is what these people do to avoid accountability and responsibility for their actions, okay? The race card is used as a shield, and the race card is propped up by this idea that black people are not responsible for their actions. No, it's the white man's fault because the system is systemically racist, okay? And any evidence or research that goes against this narrative that the system is racist against black people, because again, the system being racist against black people is what protects their ability not to actually be held responsible or accountable for their actions, that is a threat, right? And that threat must be stopped, okay, and silenced, right? This is what they do when you produce evidence that, hey, maybe your worldview is not in line with facts and reality. And that's what happened here to Dr. Roland G. Fryer, an economist from Harvard University that happened to produce some inconvenient research going against the leftist narrative on police brutality. And he faced cancellation from black progressives, like, for example, Miss Claudine Gay at Harvard, over his research that went against the narrative. Now, Miss Claudine Gay, I'm pretty sure you guys remember who she is. She was the former president of Harvard before she got canceled for accusations of anti-Semitism and plagiarism. And it just so happened that in order to try to avoid accountability and responsibility for her actions, she pulled a race card, right? Harvard basically tried to say that it's an attack against black women, okay? That the attack against her is racist, okay? But before she became president of Harvard, she built her career trying to tear down academics like Roland G. Fryer, who produced research, something that she really didn't do too much of as an academic, that, again, went against the systemic racism narrative. And instead of actually producing her own research to counter his research, no, that's not what she did. She didn't engage in the substance of the issue at hand. No, what she did is that she coordinated a witch hunt against him, in which he got suspended for 2 years because of sexual harassment allegations. You know, they love to use this against people that they're trying to cancel. And they were trying to cancel this man because his research did not go along with the racial narrative that these woke revolutionaries really want to hold on to so much in this country because it's extremely profitable. So Mr. Roland G. Fryer here is actually going to talk about his experience with the attempts to cancel him because of his research. And I think that this is really an eye-opening moment in regards to what black people who happen to speak out against the narrative have to go through from other black people who want to try to protect the narrative really badly, even if it's not grounded in facts and reality. So let's play this clip.
A lot of data. We collected millions of observations on everyday use of force that wasn't lethal. We collected thousands of observations on lethal force. And it was in this moment in 2016 that I realized people lose their minds when they don't like the result. So what my paper showed, you'll see tomorrow, like some of you, was that, yes, we saw some bias in the low-level uses of force, every day pushing up against cars and things like that.
Now, again, he says we've seen some bias when it comes to low-level uses of force. Now, what could explain this? Well, you know, presumably what the woke revolutionary would say, well, it must be racism. It must be that black folks tend to be roughed up more by police because they're black, right? But, you know, they'll never actually really consider that. I don't know, maybe just maybe it could be that some suspects tend to be more aggressive with police than others, right? When you tend to be more aggressive with police, then they're probably going to end up using more force against you. But again, that's not something that, you know, leftists really want to consider. Everything has to be racism.
People seem to like that result, but we didn't find any racial bias in police shootings. Now, that was really surprising to me because I expected to see it. The little-known fact is I had 8 full-time RAs that it took to do this over nearly a year. When I found this surprising result, I hired 8 fresh ones and redid it to make sure. They came up with the same exact answer, and I thought it was robust. And then I went to go give it, and my God, all hell broke loose. It was a 104-page, dense academic economics paper with a 150-page appendix, okay? It was posted for 4 minutes when I got my first email. This is full of shit. Doesn't make any sense. And I wrote back, how'd you read it that fast?
Well, they didn't read it, right? It went against the narrative. So just because it goes against the narrative, what did they say? Oh, well, it's full of ish. Well, what about it is full of ish, right? What about it is wrong? But they'll never engage with that. They'll never tell you what about it is wrong. They'll never actually tell you why your argument is wrong or what they actually really disagree with. No, right? They just say, oh, it's full of ish, okay? It's ad hominem, okay? That's what it is because you have nothing, right? When you have nothing, this is what you result to. And it happens every single time.
That's amazing. You are a genius. And I had colleagues take me to the side and say, don't publish this. You'll ruin your career. I said, what are you talking about? I said, what's wrong with it? Do you believe the first part? Yes. Do you believe the second part? Well, the issue is they just don't fit together. We like the first one, but you should publish the second one another time. I said, let me ask this. if the second part about the police shootings, this is a literal conversation. I said to them, if the second part showed bias, do you think I should publish it then? And they say, yeah, then it would make sense. And I said, I guarantee you I'll publish it. We'll see what happens. So it was, you know, I lived under police protection for about 30 or 40 days. I had a 7-day-old daughter at the time. I remember going and shopping for, because, you know, when you have a newborn, you think you have enough diapers, you don't. So I was going to the grocery store to get diapers with an armed guard. It was crazy. It was really, truly crazy.
Yeah. That is an amazing story, right? It's an amazing story, okay? But I'm not surprised at all because this is how intolerant the left is. They're extremely intolerant to evidence, research that goes against their agenda, okay? Now, again, this study was done out in Houston, and it showed that, hey, you know, when it comes to low-level uses of force, there is some bias. Now, I don't necessarily think that that's automatically because of racism, okay? White cops trying to beat up the black man, right? I do think that we should consider the behaviors of the individuals that would warrant some use of force at a low level. But when it came to what people were tearing down the country over, okay, they were boohoo, whining, and crying, okay, about unarmed black men being murdered by cops, okay, which is extremely rare in this country. Yeah, he didn't go along with the narrative. And because he didn't go along with the narrative, they told him that, hey, it's full of ish. Don't publish it, right? Which is textbook censorship, okay? Which, you know, hey, I would also argue that the allegations against this guy probably is a part of that type of censorship as well, too, to try to cancel him, to discredit him as a person. Now, to be fair, there has been research produced that claims that there are flaws in the methodology and the data of the study that Mr. Fryer has produced. However, if you consider the story that Dr. Fryer told here in regards to the hate and harassment and abuse that is experienced by academics like himself that produces research that is contrary to the narrative, then I would question whether or not there's a lot more research out there that does not show bias, okay, or that goes against the narrative that is never published or that we never hear about because it goes against the narrative, right? Again, it really brings into question how reliable these so-called studies are, okay? What you're seeing in regards to what's happening in these liberal cities, these chaos and destruction, is a result of woke academia and these clearly biased studies that they produce showing that this country is systemically racist. But have you ever considered how many studies don't get published because of these types of threats that are routinely issued against people who go against the narrative, especially if you're black, right? You're a black economist, okay? You produce a study showing that, hey, there's no racial bias when it comes to, I would say, high-level uses of force. When you're talking about police shootings in Houston, oh, no, you can't publish that, right? You can't do that. Again, how many other black professors or how many other professors, period, especially if you're white and you produce a study going against the leftist narrative, how many of them have been subject to the same type of harassment and abuse that Dr. Fryer has? Probably a lot more than you think. Which, again, this is why you have to take the woke academic studies with a grain of salt. It's unfortunate to say that, but woke academia has become a cesspool of leftist ideology. If you're not producing research, like, for example, when it comes to the issue of climate change, that goes along with the globalist agenda on that issue, you might not receive funding. You will be ostracized as a crackpot, as a kook, okay? And that's just kind of how it goes, and that's what you're seeing here. Doesn't matter what the topic is. If you're not producing the answers that the left wants to hear, then this is how you treat it. This is how you treat it. So, again, this is a fascinating story that really shows you why academia is not respected as much as it once was, right? Universities like Harvard, these Ivy League universities that have went full-blown woke, why they're not as prestigious as they once were to the general public. And this is why, again, I think this country is headed down the wrong path, especially when it comes to policy making, because we're making policies based off propaganda, not actual real facts and evidence. But hey, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.